So this is where I was actually trying to get pretty much this entire time. I did get, of course, but that does tend to happen whenever I get the chance to rant about Neverwinter Nights, and now a bit more in general about protagonists in games. And honestly, I simply want to play through a story that a protagonist forges for himself right from the very beginning, even from before the game actually starts. Ideally, from before I even hit the play button, the character's backstory tells me that in the things that matter, it is the character that I'm about to play who makes the decisions. Then the character starts small, can get big, does not have to actually, and frankly, the world ending, universe destroying finales are not what I necessarily need in any piece of media, and they are most likely not what I want to personally write about. And back to the games, it is the foundation of that character that I'm supposed to embody that has to be solid in this way for me to be actually willing to get into that game. And what actually led me to pile up this huge heap of nonsense? Well, it was a game called Zoria Age of Shattering that got me onto this topic. For the playable character is this alleged skill commander, competent leader of one of the most important forts in that setting, in that world, that are a part of the last defense of a single country. But unfortunately, from my perspective, that character is portrayed as nothing but what a character responsible for innumerable lives. Instead, he makes rash decisions that put him and everyone around him not just in danger but indirectly. And yes, there are details to this, lead to the fall of his fortress, one of five, if I remember correctly. And yes, that can be a thing. A character who got a post he or she did not deserve. It led to some serious consequences, and that character then has to actually prove himself and grow into someone worthy of whatever responsibility that post may had entailed. Not ideal in my eyes, but in this world, this character's commander is hailed as the best. Yes, maybe reckless, but a brilliant strategic mind and a capable commander. But that is not what we see right from the very beginning of that story. And it makes me not believe the characters when they say something, well, anything else. And I do have to stress that this is simply my perception that is skewed, that is quite easily affected by other, even external factors. But on the other hand, it is me who plays the game, and it is the effect that it has on me that matters to me. And this type of a character is just simply not what I'm looking for when I desperately wish to escape from this our real world. Similarly, when it comes to a large portion of JRPGs, where the protagonist usually starts as a fumbling fool, and I mean story wise, and then even if that might get better, as the story progresses, it simply puts me off. And something connected to this, a reason why I do not want to delve too deep into themes that I have no or little to no knowledge of, since I can easily imagine myself in a situation where I am proverbially shooting myself in the foot trying to depict this fully fleshed out character, not just a side character met in passing, but one that is supposed to fulfill a role that I as the writer am not completely familiar with, and might end up portraying that character even inadvertently as someone who is extremely not suited for that role through his or her decisions and actions. And so, in an effort to truly craft a story that will fulfill all of my insane criteria, this is one of the things that I will have to be quite concerned about because it can make me fail right from the very beginning. Well, got to the point, not sure how well it came across, and also almost straight into the negatives, so that means rapid arrows. And speaking of consequences, here come the ones of their latest adventure. I need to quickly go back, and I'm genuine when I'm saying this. I'm not criticizing Zoria and their choice of the introductory story for the protagonist of that game. I do not think that it was right nor wrong, simply not the way that I would choose myself, and also not a way to introduce a character to me, one that I'm supposed to play as. Now, rapid arrows, for real this time. And if you recall the consequences that I had mentioned during the previous chapter, well, during its finale, now in the room of Indra's parents, deep in the night, his mother got startled awake by the screams coming from her son's bedroom. His father as well wakes up, lights up a lamp, and notes that this has been happening ever since that 4 days long expedition, almost every night. So they go to their son's bedroom. His mother tries to calm him down while he is still asleep, attempting to assist him some way in his battle against this nightmare that seems to be disturbing him. No signs of fever or any other conventional explanation for this behavior. And then at some point during her attempts at consoling him, he begins talking in his sleep. He's mumbling barely coherent, but parts of the message do get through as he is lamenting that they are going to drown, that the water is rising. He is calling for his parents, calling for Mirak and for someone to help them. The next day during breakfast, his parents confront him and he is forced to explain to them the horrific experience in that cave, spending the night with the entrance being flooded. And then he also admits that every night the dreams repeat themselves, forcing him to relive that event, and that in turn forces his father to make a quite tough decision on behalf of his son, wishing the best for him, and that is to forbid him from attending the club meetings and quitting the club as a result of his fear that despite the boys being an overall great influence, they also engage in some rather dangerous activities, and that could potentially lead to someone actually paying the ultimate price. And rather than that someone ending up being his son, he chooses this somewhat rash but ultimately well meant solution. And despite Indra's desperate attempts at persuading his father, hoping for his leniency, there seems to be no way of convincing him that there will be no such situations in the future, and thus Indra is forced to write probably the most difficult lines of his life, has to inform the rest of the club via a letter that he will no longer be able to spend time with them, an act that must definitely crush his heart. Meanwhile, in the club room, the boys have gathered and are just waiting for Indra, the normally extremely punctual member of their club. That is definitely weird, but Mirek decides to start the meeting without him for now. But as he's still not turning up, even by the end of the meeting, they come to the conclusion that something must have happened, and the next best course of action is to go and directly check up on him. When they do arrive and are standing under his windows, nothing happens even after a few heroic whistles from Speedy, but then one of them opens and Indra leans out, dropping them some sort of a message in a small box tied to a long rope. And even before reading it, just because of the fact that he's not delivering it in person with his own voice, it appears to them that something is not right. And from the content of that letter, it becomes clear what is happening, as Indra explains to his longtime friends that he can no longer be a member of their club due to the decision of his parents, despite that crushing his soul, and asks for nothing but for the members to sometimes remember him, as he will always hold them dear in his heart and his memories. Unfortunately, unable to experience any more adventures with them. Signed, yours, sorrowful and devastated, Indra. This is where I'm going to stop on a high note, and next time, who would have guessed, more Happy Arrows and a bit more about stories.